everybody. Welcome to the BimmerLife podcast. We are here in beautiful Southern California. I'm here with Neil Verhagen and Samantha Tan of Samantha Tan Racing. So thank you very much for having us down here. Beautiful facility. This is really a treat. We were actually down here for a CCA club event where Samantha opened up the entire shop to us and introduced the brand new M4 GT3 cars and one of the GT4 cars, actually, correct? So, I've done a bit of research on you guys. So you're a team principal, you're the M ambassador, the M brand ambassador, and also a racing car driver. So I'm curious, do you sleep at all, first and foremost? I don't understand it. But, maybe can you just kind of tell us about how you became all this, like where this all kind of came from and what was the real driver? If you don't mind introducing yourselves a little bit and some of your backstory and kind of what brought us here.
Sure. My racing journey started when I was 16 years old, which is pretty late for a race car driver, but what really got me into it was my dad, who was a big car enthusiast and race car fan. Like watching F1 with him was one of the earliest memories I have as a child. But he enrolled me in a bunch of performance driving schools when I was old enough to reach the pedals. And it was actually BMW winter driver training courses. And he really wanted me to learn proper car control, but I absolutely fell in love with it. At the end of one of these programs, I got to sit in my very first race car. I was taken out by a pro driver for a hot lap, and just like the acceleration, braking, G-forces, I had the biggest smile on my face.
You were suckered in at that point.
Yeah, I was hooked. So as soon as I got out of the car, I was like, hey, I think I want to be a race car driver too. And that's what got me started working towards getting my racing license. I started in NASA with a 91 Civic.
Okay, nice.
Little 5-speed car. Did a few NASA races, did my first national series in 2014, and a Mini Cooper S, JCW, was crowned Rookie of the Year that year, and then moved to the States because, the racing industry here is so much bigger. I'm from Canada originally.
Oh, okay.
So I did my first year at Pirelli World Challenge in 2015 with Kia, actually. And have pretty much stayed in that same series over the course of the years. Did a few years in touring cars, moved up to GT4 in 2018. Won my very first championship in 2020 in SRO GT4 America. I went on to start my endurance racing career in 2021, won all 6 championship titles that year, 24-hour series, and then finally made the step up to GT3 back in 2022. It was actually the first win with the M4 GT3
Very cool.
at the 12-hour of Mugello.
Very cool.
It's been a journey, for sure, but that's what got me into it.
Right. So, definitely a wide sweep from starting out with a Civic, which probably had 112 horsepower, going downhill with a tailwind.
So much fun,
momentum cars are fun. Slow cars, faster, entertaining.
And we're running 2 GT3s this year in GT World Challenge America with my lovely co-driver. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Neil Verhagen. I am a factory driver with BMW Motorsport. I've been with BMW now this will be my 5th season with BMW, 2nd year as a factory driver. My career started in go-karts when I was 7 years old. I moved to Formula cars when I did the Skip Barber Racing School, and then the Formula 1600 or the Formula Ford championship in 2014. 2015, I was then signed to Red Bull Racing F1 Junior Team, where I spent the next 2 years racing over in Europe with Red Bull. I'd done a year then afterwards in Formula 3, and then finally then merged with BMW. I started with Samantha in the middle of last year. In June, one of the other BMW factory drivers decided to take a step back from racing for some more personal reasons and for a different opportunity that came along, which then gave me the opportunity to step in and race with Samantha. We started at Virginia together, and we finished off the season, and I was lucky enough then to have them invite me back for a 2nd year. So looking forward to my first full season with her team, and hopefully we can do some winning and hopefully win a championship.
Very, very cool. Perfect. GT3, now a lot of people may not, a lot of folks when they hear GT3, they probably initially think we're talking about Porsches. Obviously, we're talking about, a racing class. So these cars are all 500 to 600 horsepower, correct? And you guys are competing against, Ferraris, Porsches, just about everything, not, of course, just the BMW marque. Now, your cars here, these are factory-built BMW race cars, correct? What's the process, because obviously a lot of people probably wonder where you even get these cars. So is it just you're ordering them through BMW? Is it a process there? And now I'm kind of getting into the team principal side of race car procurement. But what does that look like? How do you even get these things?
You can purchase them at any BMW Motorsport dealer. So there's very specific BMW Motorsport dealers around the U.S. And you can put an order, start a customer racing team if you wish.
Nice.
But we actually received, these are the first 2 customer racing GT3s that were delivered back in 2022.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and I walked around these things after they were unveiled. Nothing resembles any M4 street car I've, of course, ever seen. They're all straight 6s. They're all paddle shift transmissions, but they're 6-speed cars, correct? Okay, so it's...
Yeah, they're 6-speed.
6-speed only.
Well, they're 6-speed plus reverse. So it's 7 if you count the reverse, but it's 6 forward,
Okay, interesting. All right, so and it's because obviously on the street cars they're all 8 speeds, and you probably don't need overdrive and all the other fun stuff like that. So you get the cars, and obviously are these essentially BMW 100% prepped, or have you guys put any special kind of spins on it? Obviously it is a spec class, so you're probably limited to what you can do with them, but more than likely you probably don't really have to do too much to them out of the box.
We definitely changed the setup in terms of suspension, brakes. There's some certain things that you can change based on the class restrictions and whatnot. Okay. But I don't know what else to add on top of that.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when the customer team receives a car from BMW, it comes with the factory setup, how BMW puts the baseline on everything. Obviously BMW needs to design a baseline for the car, and that's what the car is delivered in. Obviously, that baseline is not optimal per track that you go to, so you wouldn't need to change the actual shocks themselves. So you wouldn't need to change the actual brake components themselves. You need to obviously optimize the package, with damper clicks or
compression and rebound,
exactly.
Different spring rates, sway bar configurations, etc.
There's obviously all that you can go into. You can start adjusting the diff as well too for more preload. You can start doing a whole bunch of stuff, and that is what the customer teams and any BMW team that runs is what they're going to do. That's why we go testing. That's why we developed our test programs to fit tracks that we go to. So, we obviously want to test before we go to the race weekend, so we have knowledge before, so that we can use that then if we see something on the race weekend that we need to adjust or fix. So, we wouldn't actually change any specific component of the car because it's homologated by the FIA. We need to stay within the regulations of the FIA. It would be illegal actually to change the components of that. Every once in a while, BMW will come out with some updates. So next year we'll have the Evo car, which comes, which will then have the car is now in its what is it, 4th season of it or 3rd season of it? 3rd season of it, yeah. So this is the 3rd season of the car running. So at the end of this year, the car will be 4 years old, and there's a lot of things that BMW's learned as well too with the car. What they could have done better as well when they built the car. Maybe they, find that there's, some cooling issues or something, or something that could have been done better. And that's what now we're focusing our adjustment in BMW is to help do that and find more performance and, better race averages.
Now, with that information, now you had mentioned, Samantha, that you go to a BMW Motorsport dealer, you purchase the car. How is the relationship now? Obviously, M brand ambassador, so there might be a couple of cell phone numbers that some people don't have. But I mean, how is the partnership with BMW from a racing perspective? Are they sending you out technical updates on, okay, we may have a new shock to fit, a new option, and a new, LCI type, option for these cars? Or how do you really interface with BMW at that point?
Yeah, they offer us a lot of support. And like you said, they could send us updates on anything new that comes, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, for some of these things that they'll update is, so we have the electronic systems is traction control and ABS. So we have that, and they're obviously always trying to constantly improve that system as well too. That's a system that's very easily played with from BMW. They can adjust it, and we test that a lot in Europe to maximize that for the car. So whenever we come out with a set that we feel is a better upgrade, then we'll send that to the customer teams. We'll give them the information on what's changed, and then obviously those customer teams will have that information then and be able to use that as we progress with that. That's something that we can constantly develop, and we don't need to homologate with the FIA to introduce to our car.
Gotcha, because it all fits within the spec class, and it's all within the controls.
We're not changing actually any component. We're just changing how the system interacts with itself.
Very cool. Okay. Circling back to, let's get back to a little bit of technical stuff, because I know I have a few people that are probably going to understand a little more of the innards of these cars. So going back to, we were just talking about more of ABS traction control type systems and all the digital sides. A lot of folks who are CCA members, well, not a lot, but many, myself included, we were club racers for a long time. So we were used to more of the Honda Civics, a little less power. I'm a big BMW E30 guy, so Spec E30 Pro 3. So, for us, it was, there's no ABS. I have brake bias. We're changing spring rates. We're changing, rebound and compression, but that's about it. You were mentioning earlier how you're able to adjust the traction control systems to a certain extent. Is that more of just knobs and buttons in the car? Is it a preset? Is it on the fly? I know there's, periods of back in the day, Michael Schumacher, before every single corner, was adjusting his brake bias from front and rear. How does that look as a racing driver with a very modern, sophisticated car?
Yeah, so basically to answer your question, once we get out on track, the driver has three main adjustments that he can make to the car, which is the brake bias is one of those. The traction control setting is another one of those, and the ABS. So with those three switches, obviously we can, we have different sets and maps for like different scenarios on track. If we have all of a sudden it starts raining, we have a different TC set for when it starts raining, as well as ABS, as well as, if I just came back from Daytona. So we raced overnight, all through the night. When the temperature changes, grip changes on the track, then we need a different TC then for that. So we have different ranges of, where the driver can play with. It's not actually changing any physical component on the car, but it's just changing how the car is reacting towards us to, some drivers may like more TC than another driver, or some drivers may like less ABS than another driver. It's something that you can play with as a driver. It's not going to change the actual way that the car handles and reacts, but it gives a different feeling of how the driver can, use that. And I think that's something that's pretty cool. And I think that's something that's always being, developed and worked on is, getting the working range of all the settings, to be better. And it's something that is very useful in the car. And, I think at the end of the day, I mean, nowadays it's a necessity for it. It's not that we, as a driver rely on it, and that we can't drive the car without traction control, but at the end of the day, it does help in terms of, tire life and, making sure that, you're staying within your windows of where you need to be to make sure that you can complete the stint at the top time. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a useful tool.
Yeah, very, very cool. And I know from club racing, once you flat spot a tire, you're having a bad day.
Right. Exactly.
And with ABS, you're protecting the tire, you're protecting the car, and especially if you're doing endurance racing or anything like that, you don't want to flat spot a tire 16 minutes into a session.
But there's always the trade-off. You use too much ABS, you start using more brakes, more pad wear, more caliper wear, more disc wear. You start getting into that problem. And with that as well, too, then with the heat that you get from using too much ABS can also affect tire life as well, too. So, it is, there's a trade-off. There needs to be that, happy medium of where, the driver, and that's where, guys with more experience that have more feel, that have the knowledge of where they need to set that, for the different levels of grip on track that can adjust that on the fly. That's where the experience comes in to, know where the set parameter is, which is, enough support where you can, rely on it, but not too much where it's hindering you and actually starting to do too much for you.
That makes sense. Okay. Now, one thing I did notice, obviously, the brake pads on these cars are gigantic. They're crazy. Steel rotors, not carbon ceramics. That kind of surprised me as an outsider looking in, not really too familiar with the class. Is that a class limitation to not have carbon ceramics on these cars, or is it more just longevity? I mean,
maybe cost.
Cost. Ceramic brakes are expensive. Yeah.
Cost is definitely one thing, and I think from all the manufacturers, with the FIA making the BOP limits and the homologation on it, it's definitely something that, it would be overkill to put carbon ceramics on these cars.
Wearables and so forth.
For our hypercar, we have them on our hypercar. But for the GT3, it is still a customer racing class. It doesn't need to have all the, top bells and whistles. The steel brakes with our racing pads and calipers, they still get the car stopped very quickly. So it's not an issue for us.
Very cool. Now, Samantha, your background that we talked about earlier was more closed wheel racing, fender cars, so to speak, and you were obviously no fenders up until relatively recent, it seems, on the open wheel side. In your case, going from the Honda Civic all the way up to cars like this, a pretty substantial jump. Your case going from aero to, these cars have aero, but nowhere near like an F1 car or any open wheel Formula car. How's the transition? So starting with you, Samantha, from going from a very, let's be honest, momentum-driven car to something that has, traction control and other systems, with 500 to 600 horsepower. Like, how does that transition look like?
I think I really took the time to go through the ladder system. Like, the reason why we started in touring car and with the momentum part was to learn like momentum and how the car feels and handles without having so much power. Yeah. Also starting with like no traction control, no ABS, that kind of stuff. Obviously getting into my first like touring cars and transitioning into like from front wheel drive to rear wheel drive, that was a big step for me. Yeah. And then again from like doing the M235, which is when I first started driving the BMW, to the GT4 and having like the traction control stuff added. There's only 3 traction control settings in the M235, if I remember. Same thing in the GT4, but they kind of updated it a little bit. It was a bit more sophisticated, I would say. And then up to the GT3, obviously there's 15 traction control settings. So, they all come with their quirks, but over the years, I think, really took the time to learn each platform before moving on to the next. 3 years in GT4 and now 3 years in GT3. So
very cool. Okay. And from the open wheel perspective, you started open wheel, now you're in closed wheel. Just a bit different.
It is definitely very different. It's definitely something that you need to get used to. And actually, it was a big swing for me because I did when I finally finished with Formula cars, I was in Formula 3. And when I started with BMW, we started on the Nordschleife at the Nürburgring. So to get your permit on the Nordschleife, you need to go through the same course that any racing driver is. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've accomplished in your racing career. Everyone needs to go through the same permit course. And that means that you need to drive, a smaller race car. So I had to do the M240i to start getting, my license. And it was such a swing of, you have a car that's, race built, but very road car like. You have, the road car brake system in it. You don't have a standard race car pedal like we do in the GT3. It has the brake helper so that, there were so many things that was different for me, body roll of the car as well too, just the weight and, how everything interacted, that it definitely took some time to get used to. Driving around the Nordschleife in a car that is everything feels so slow then at that point as well too. When you're used to, you look at a corner and you're like, okay, yeah, that's flat. And then you come into it the first time and you turn in and you're like, oh my God, that's not flat. Like, I hope I don't crash now. And I think actually it became easier for me. Like as I then went from the 240i then to the GT4, then, things, got, a little bit more comfortable. But then really when I went to the GT3, then it was, a lot of things, made more sense then to me. There is aero on the car, there is that, part of it. Definitely not as much as what I was used to when I was racing in Formula cars. But the big thing for me was like the weight transfer, like, because these cars are obviously so heavy compared to what I was used to. Like the Formula car, I could, just flick around anywhere. Like you get into a corner and you just flick it in and you keep it flat. And, at some point, that the aero load's going to catch up and you're going to just drip up in the middle of the corner and you're just going to make the exit of the corner. Like, and it takes like a certain set of like confidence to do that. With this, it's the complete opposite. If you come in and you're overslipping the front tire and you're getting in there too hot, like you never recover that. Like you're going to just go off. So like, I think a lot of the time I caught myself like overdriving the GT3 in the beginning, like asking just too much from it. But over the years, obviously, as I, now I'm in my 4th year with the GT3, now I've obviously got a much better feeling for it. But definitely my tendency is to want to overdrive, to over push it. I want to ask for more of it all the time. But yeah, it's a great class. I think the racing is much better than the Formula cars. I mean, when I started the race after the standing start, I mean, you do lap 1 and that was the race pretty much over. Until you get, to the point where you have like DRS and, then maybe you can do something there. But if not, then there was no chance. Yeah. With the GT3, you obviously have a lot of opportunity to race, a lot of door-to-door action. You can, and with the longer races as well too, strategy comes into play. With a short race like we had with no pit stops in Formula 3.
Yeah, you're done.
I mean, after qualifying, you're pretty much done. So this allows you to have a lot more go into it as well too, which I thought was really cool. I thought that was very interesting. And I've really enjoyed coming back, starting with sports cars and continuing with that. I always tell myself, that I missed the Formula car, but only because of the qualifying. That one lap where you just go out there and you lay everything on the line and you put everything in, like 1 millimeter wrong is the difference between first and 10th. And, it's so tight and the competition's so hard. But then as soon as I start racing this car, I'm like, this is so much better.
Yeah, you just get in the mindset and you're off.
Yeah, exactly. You can have a battle with somebody. You can have the battle with the same person and swap positions for an hour. And it's definitely a lot of fun.
It sounds very similar to a lot of the club racing I've done, a lot of club racing I know. When you're, too wide in a corner, you're interlocking mirrors, you're just trading back and forth and back and forth. It's fun, and it really keeps you engaged versus, I watched the F1 race the other day, and Verstappen's gone, and there you go.
Yeah, exactly. No, and obviously the characteristic of an open wheel Formula car is, you lock wheels and you touch. I mean, someone's crashing.
You're done.
And that's your race over. So. You have to be so, calculated with everything that you do in that car. There's no room for error. Not to say that you can just go and bang fenders with these things as well. I mean, there's obviously damage that happens in these cars, and you can't just be a maniac out there. But, it definitely, you can have a little bit of contact, like marginal, within obviously reason. You can lean on each other in the corners, and it just makes exciting racing. Like you get that real feeling of like, wow, these guys are really like giving it absolutely everything, and they're rubbing each other's mirrors, and they're giving it everything. And I think I like that kind of racing. That excites me.
Yeah. It's fun to watch too.
It is.
Yeah, certainly Rubbins racing, trading paint, as they say. Now, Samantha, back to you. Obviously, we talked a lot about racing. Being a team principal and a racing driver has to be, and just being able to flip the hat. You're the engineer and you're the manager. You're kind of, wearing both hats, so to speak. Is it difficult to run a race team as well as drive the car? And just all the logistics on the cars, the supplies, the vendors, the mechanics, transportation. Obviously, I know you work with people to help with that, but it all probably falls on your shoulders. What does a typical day for you kind of look like running this team?
Yeah, I realized you asked that question at the beginning and I didn't really answer it.
No, it's fine.
Basically, it is very challenging, but that's why I've kind of hired a really good team around me. I don't really do the day-to-day stuff anymore. Yeah. We have somebody that does all the logistics. John's team manager. I have a crew chief, Mark, who handles all the mechanics and everything. So I've really kind of just trusted them to do the job, so I can focus on racing essentially. And what I learned, I was full-time college student as well as full-time racer. So what I learned from that time is that you can't really juggle everything by yourself. At the time, I really tried to do everything. I was managing my socials. I was doing all of my PR, all my sponsorships. I was a full-time student and I was traveling everywhere for racing. And I just completely burnt myself out. And I realized, at some point something had to give. And I really had some moments in my career where I realized that, I really have to have good time management, but also accept that I need help.
Yeah. You can't put all the weight on your shoulders.
Really delegate everything. So I have a manager now. I have a PR team, and they've been incredible.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, I don't want to spoil it, 'cause I'm going to let you guys spoil it, but you recently brought somebody in to join the team, a very, very experienced person that everyone in the BMW world especially knows. Who's part of the Samantha Tan Racing team now?
Yeah, so this year we are running 2 GT3 cars and GT World Challenge from America. We've had the incredible opportunity to have Bill Oberlin join my team this year, as well as Varun, his co-driver, and we're very excited to work together. He's an absolute legend, of course.
Yeah, Bill's a cool guy, and what I think also has to be really exciting for you guys is just the amount of experience he's bringing to the team. Kind of, you look at F1 teams bring, the young guy and they bring in Alonso or somebody who's been with them for a long time. So, obviously it's very, very new in terms of the engagement, but what type of experiences have you already kind of gained just by having him around? I mean, just to start.
I mean, we haven't really talked so much for the beginning of the season, but I mean, to compare, I had never worked with like a factory driver in majority of my career. So last year was the first year I had the opportunity to work with John and Neil, and I feel like my skills as a driver like skyrocketed, like got much better. Like I was able to learn so much from them. I was like literally like a sponge soaking up all the knowledge that these guys gave to me, and it almost feels like instead of having to do trial and error by yourself, you're getting like the best advice possible. So I feel like having them on the team is a very great asset for sure.
Yeah, not only as a co-driver, but also in theory, probably a coach in many ways to kind of just help gain that experience in time. I mean, he has so many hours and so many years, 30 plus years, I think, in these cars and everything else. It's got to be really tremendous to have, to have him on board.
Yeah, we're very excited to start the season together. For sure.
That'll be cool. It'll be really cool to watch it, especially. When you're not in the car, obviously you have to be training out of the car. Now, I saw some simulator fun a little bit earlier between you two, and reminded me a little bit more when my friends and I, fight between on a set of course or whatever. So maybe a couple more pit maneuvers than you guys were planning on. But, obviously simulator time, I know for many, I used to play around within the simulator during the off season just to, remain as, be somewhat sharp, at least as sharp as it can be before you put your butt in the seat again. But how much time do you guys really spend, kind of training outside the car?
So I don't have a sim, as you could probably tell. I haven't touched a sim in many, many months, but tried to keep up as much as I could. But I do see the value in having a simulator. It's definitely like really good for learning tracks that you've never been to before, getting back into it. But what I do to train is essentially just going to the gym as much as possible during the week, sometimes up to 5 times a week.
Nice.
And I did a lot of karting, just to stay, both for the physical aspect, but just to stay sharp. Unfortunately, my closest kart track closed, so I'm looking for a new one. Aww. But yeah, if I don't have access to any of those things, good old YouTube. Yep. Watching some videos, really studying like, certain reference points and whatnot.
So I learned Sonoma way back. It was GT Legends, I think, is what I ended up playing it on. So
yeah, when I went to Nürburgring for the first time, I didn't do any sim work. I looked at a little bit of YouTube, but I ended up asking my friend Misha to take me out for a few laps.
Yeah.
That helped a lot.
Now, what about you? Simulator or?
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. So I do a lot of simulator stuff. So I have a home sim that I use iRacing on. I like to be active on it. I actually just put together a brand new sim at my house that I'm very happy about. So I've been spending a lot of time on that. I've been pushing her to try and get one. I think today proved that she probably should get one and spend some more time on it.
Thank you.
But yeah, no. So for me, I mean, coming back like through my Formula open wheel background as well too. When I was at Red Bull, I was doing the sim with them at Red Bull, and like you pick up things and you start to learn how much access that you can get by using the simulator, how much you can actually take into a race weekend. Maybe it's not 100% one-to-one, but there's so much that you can just clear off the bat and just be more present while you're there and focus on the things that you can't then obviously take from the simulator. So I've been using that a lot. Very different to her. I used the simulator a lot before I went to the Nordschleife, so I didn't have to worry about knowing where the track went or where anything was.
There's a couple corners there last I checked, so
there's quite a few of them. But yeah, no, I mean off the track I train with PitFit. They're a company that's designed for racing drivers. That is it's solely focused on racing drivers. So I train there with bunch of racing drivers, a couple IndyCar drivers, other sports car racers, and they do a tailored program for myself. They set my whole week schedule for me. They also do mental training there as well too. If I'm on the road as well, they'll tailor a program for me while I'm on the road if I'm not in facility with them there. So they take very good care of me in terms of my physical fitness level. And actually, we just got done doing all of my assessments for this year, so we saw the improvement that we did over the winter, so we're very happy with that. And feeling very confident and strong going into the year, and looking forward to starting out.
Yeah. One thing I you know, and I'm the farthest from an athlete myself, but I do know, you know, even 45 minutes in the car at the start of the season, you feel it. You definitely feel it.
I know I'm going to feel it.
Just my neck, you know, especially there. And obviously, you know, being a Formula car driver at one point, just the neck exercises you guys had to do were probably insane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've hung enough 45-pound weights off my neck to hold that one over you for the time being. But yeah, no, it's like as you said, like I did Daytona earlier this year and at the end of January, and like you know, triple stint, you know, in the car, near 3.5 hours in the car, and you know, that's things that we train for there. You know, the endurance that, you know, is needed to drive cars like this. You know, it's no longer a Formula race, which is, you know, 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, we're talking a whole day of racing, 24 hours, you know, being in the car 3.5 hours at a time, get out for, you know, an hour and a half, and you have to get back in again. I mean, that's, you know, something that you need to, you know, and maybe it's not a problem to do the 3 hours, but then to get back out of the car, to be able to recover enough, then to get back in and put in that same level of performance again, is obviously where the athlete then, you know, comes out in the person, you know, because you can do a 3-hour stint, but if you drain yourself to zero, you're not going to be able to perform at 100% anymore.
Correct.
So, you know, it's, you know, that's what we train at PitFit, is, you know, making sure that no matter what scenario it is, whether we're in Sebring and the track temperature is over 120 degrees and it's boiling in the car, or, you know, whether it's 24 hours at Daytona where you're in the car for an extended period amount of time, or even if it's just, you know, the SRO America race where it's, you know, just get absolutely everything you have for an hour. Yep. It's all tailored by them. So I've been very happy with what they've done.
Well, you had mentioned earlier, especially for endurance. I mean, endurance racing is a whole other ball game in itself. You know, 30-minute, 45-minute races that we do in the club, you know, you can be at 110% for that period of time. But endurance racing, you really have to plan out, you know, essentially what you're doing, especially as track conditions change, to your point, weather, temperature, tires. I mean, everything kind of falls into place, but sometimes it doesn't, you know.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And the thing that's crazy now is that these cars are so reliable now, and they're so well developed. When we start racing, I mean, we're at 100% from pretty much the start. Like, there is no managing and holding back and, you know, trying to let the race come to you. I mean, if you're not pushing from the beginning, then
you're not going
to be on the lead lap by the end of the race. You know, you need to, you know, and especially when you get to tracks like Nürburgring and, you know, Le Mans, which, you know, don't have like full safety cars, which bring the field back together, especially Nürburgring where it works off of the code zones. You know, there's such a benefit to leading that race that, you know, obviously luck comes into play with it, but, you know, as the driver as well too, like, you know, you're expected by the manufacturer to be able to drive at 100% for however many hours they ask you to do. And that's definitely something that we focus on.
Very, very cool. Now, I don't want to capitalize because I could talk your guys' ear off all day. This is incredibly fascinating. Where I kind of want to go with it now is, you know, there's a lot of younger generation folks who want to become racing drivers. They want to get into it. There's the racing driver side. There's the team owner and racing driver side. I still don't understand how you do that. You know, pieces of advice for people that either are, you know, kids who are young enough to get into this, you know, type of sport, or parents who have youngins who want to get into this, like, piece of advice. You know, you both grew up differently in terms of racing, and now you've come together driving closed wheel cars for BMW. What type of advice do you have to people that really want to get into this sport?
I think get your feet wet in any way that you can, whether that be sim racing or karting. Those are definitely the most cost-effective ways to get started in motorsport. And karting is definitely a good way to, both of them are a good way to hone your racetrack without too much, I guess, the cost involved. Other than that, I think really put yourself out there. Use social media. It's a free marketing tool. People often forget that. Really build yourself a unique brand, because sponsorships are really a very big, crucial key in this sport.
Racing's expensive.
Probably one of the most expensive sports we have, right?
Yeah.
So don't forget why you started, and don't forget to have fun.
Yeah. Important.
Well, I mean, I don't really know if I can add too much better than what she just said there. I think she just pretty much nailed it on the top of the head there. But it was actually very fascinating today. I saw a kid drive today on the simulator here with an incredible amount of talent today.
He had the McLaren shirt
Yes.
on, didn't he? Yep, I saw him. I was watching him too. Yeah.
Incredible amount of talent today. And he had just started karting a year ago. He's 11 years old, and his feel for the minimum grip of slip angle of the tire, of track usage, of everything that requires to be a fast racing driver, which is not taught, which is something that you need to just have by feel, he had. And I saw a young me in there. His father has no idea of how to go through the motorsport ranks, and it was very cool to see that. Actually, it reminded me a lot about myself, and is definitely someone that I would like to help out in the future as well too, and help guide, because I definitely think that he will be a professional racing driver one day. And I told him, I said, continue doing with whatever you're doing and just keep doing it. I mean, you have the talent for it. Just keep pushing for it. It's definitely something that you can make a career out of, as long as you keep your head screwed on and you focus on it and attack your, because that is what I did whenever I was young. I was always pushing my parents to go to the racetrack on the go-kart, whatever it was. Obviously as well too, it's, down to, circumstance and scenario. I was very fortunate to have, parents that were very supportive of the whole situation, and that gave everything that they had to put me on to the racetrack. It wasn't easy for us as a family to always support me to go out and race, but they gave absolutely everything that they had to get me out to the racetrack. They saw how much passion I had for it, and every time that I pushed them to go out to the racetrack, they allowed me to do that. And the only thing that they said was, as long as you're pushing for it and it's something that you really want to do, then we're going to obviously try our best to support. Obviously some things are not possible. We can't fund millions of dollars, but we can try and do whatever we can. And it worked out for me. So I think, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of people as well to make that happen. So it was cool to see today. So I wish him the best. I hope to see him one day, maybe drive with him one day. He's, a couple years younger than I am.
He had a crowd around him. It was cool. It was really cool to see it.
Fast. It was very impressive. I mean, things that you just can't teach. It's things that you just have to have the feeling for, that you find whenever somebody comes and knows what they're doing, and it was very impressive to see. It's not often you see it, but when you do see it, it's like, wow, that's impressive. So.
That's cool. Let's pause for one moment when we turn the car alarm off.
So your dad's
I think it is. I like it. Damn. Whose car is it? Oh, it's the.
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks. Quiet on set.
All right, we'll start the wrap up and
cool.
Get you guys back at it.
I was gonna add.
Yeah.
If you decide to go to college, if you're young and you're going to college, something that I kind of wish I did was pursue engineering in some form, just so I could have a better understanding of the car and the way that it handles. So
some of the best racing drivers I've personally met, and I keep meeting more, including amazing people such as yourself. It's really interesting to kind of hear the backgrounds, right? There's a lot that come from an engineering perspective. There's a lot that coming from simulator, go-kart, and then they kind of learn it. And realistically, I found great input just from a club racing level. Hearing data from both, like, understanding the basic mechanical operation of the car does help you drive the car better in many ways. And, I've heard that from a lot of folks of, understand how it all works, how it all kind of functions. You don't have to know every single square inch of it, of course, but it certainly does help in that aspect. So, that's another great piece of advice. Cool.
Would you like to talk Nürburgring? That's something that you said before.
I did. I didn't want to capitalize on your time, so.
I mean, we can do a little quick segment on Nürburgring if you want.
Yeah,
I won my first race last year.
I'm game.
So, talking about winning, then I'll start off with my winning. Then, so I am the youngest winner on the Nordschleife in the overall class.
Really?
Yeah. So, as the team that we drove with is a combined youngest age winner. My teammate is younger than me by like a month, so he is the youngest. But as a team combined, we are the youngest overall winning drivers on the Nürburgring in the NLS. So
I was there for that.
That's cool.
No, that was when the M6. That was before you were there. But yeah, no. So the Nürburgring is something that is always going to hold a special place in my heart, because it's where BMW took me in. It's where we made the switch from Formula cars to sports cars. And for me, there's no better track to race a GT3 car on. It has everything in terms of traffic management, difficulty of just the track itself, no runoff, no mistakes, different rules of how the series different different. Your dad's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
Different rules as well too of like how how the safety, or like there is no safety car, so how the corner workers are protected in the code zones. And
do they do a VSC now or anything like that? Or
so basically, if you have an incident, that it goes off a marshal post. So you have marshal posts from number 1 to be honest, I don't know the number of what the last marshal post is, but there's a lot. I mean, over the...
It was 147 corners or 100 and
I don't
something?
know how many corners there's, like, at least 150, 160. Because I think at Carousel, it's like 121.
There's a ton. I mean,
Yeah.
I can name every section of the track, but I cannot name every... or I can't tell you how many corners there is. There's, way too many. It's just one of those places that, so sorry, to answer your question, we'll answer that first. So basically, if there's an incident that happens, there's the marshal posts that are then that are done with an electronic system. That goes to race control. The marshal says there's been an incident at this marshal post, and the race control will tell the previous marshal post that they need to put 3 previous marshal posts that they need to start throwing a yellow flag.
Yep.
Then the next one will have a code 120 board, which then means that you can no longer do more than 120 kilometers per hour.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a third one then that brings it down to...
Third one that brings it down to
60 kilometers per hour. Then.
Okay. Now, is there any digital indication within the car at this point, or are you strictly relying on the corner station?
So you're strictly relying on the marshal boards, on the corner workers. There is now a system in the car which helps inform, but still the standing of where the flags are on the track always takes priority, disregarding what the system says. And that is something that sounds easy, but when you're doing 200 miles an hour, overtaking cars, when you're, on a tight track like that, it is not easy at all. When it comes to the night, it's dark on the track. You have to look at that because, the penalties are severe on that during the race.
And there's no lighting at night.
No, I mean,
it's just your headlights. That's it.
Some places where you go down where it is literally just, you can only see where the headlights stop, and that is normally just between the white lines. Like, you don't even see the walls anymore. You just see road. And that's it. I mean, sometimes that's all you have. I mean, it is so dark around that place, and it is, but then at some other places where there's high population of spectators, it's really bright there, and you smell them
barbecuing, or
I was like, is it true that you smell the barbecue?
Oh, absolutely. In Brunchen, when you go through Brunchen, the double right-hander where all the car videos are made on YouTube, where you see everyone... YouTube corner, which is
one of them,
Brunchen, but it's
and that's kind of downhill, and it kind of sweeps to the right. And there's like an RV park on the left-hand side of it when you're in car. Yep.
When you go through there, you smell everything that's happening on the outside of the track and the inside of the track, and even like when it starts to just start getting dark and it gets to like dinner time, like there is barbecue smoke that's like rolling through the track at that point. Like you go through a cloud of barbecue smoke. And it is something that's very interesting. The race itself the fans there are just unbelievable. They're they're so passionate about it, and the racing itself is so good around there, and it's something that I will always have as one of my favorite racetracks in the world.
I've done 8 laps on it in an old BMW E30 Touring, and in that 8 laps, and I've driven it for years on a simulator, and just in that 8 laps, I was speechless. I was absolutely speechless, even thinking about A, racing on it, B, racing out of the night, and just trying to understand, all the pieces.
I was going to ask, what's your favorite corner?
Yeah.
So I don't have a favorite corner, but I have a favorite section. So as soon as I get out of the first carousel, going through Hoheock, through Wipperman, through Eschbach, Brunchen, and then as soon as I get out of Flansgarten 1, that's my favorite section. The flow that's through there is just
a lot of fun,
unbelievable in a GT3 car. It is so fast. You have to be millimeter perfect everywhere, especially through Wipperman, where you have the So you go through first carousel, then you have Hoa Doctor, you go up the hill, you get to the 90-degree right-hand corner, you're coming back down the hill, and you have all the curbs, and then you come out for Eschbach. And that part there, especially in the GT3, the amount of speed you can carry and the amount of curve you can take in the GT3 car, how much it handles is just, it's unbelievable there. But millimeters is what we're talking about between doing it correct and crashing every lap. And it's, it is, and the thing is as well too, is because there's so many different cars on track as well too, and there's so many different classes and there's so many different levels of racing there, the same track surface is never there two separate laps. Maybe somebody dropped a bit of oil somewhere, or maybe somebody went off and bought a little dirt on track. You have to be so responsive and reactive as a driver around the Nordschleife. Maybe a quarter of the track is raining and the rest of it is
And so I experienced that just doing a tourist day.
Exactly.
Pouring down rain, it was snowing in one part, it was blue skies on the straightaway.
It's actually possible. And the thing what makes it so challenging then is that, as a racing driver, if you go to like any normal racing circuit and it starts raining, it's pretty clear. You're going to the wet tires, you're switching to rain tires. There, it is not the fastest always to be on wet tires. If you have 18 kilometers of dry track and you have a part of the track that's
2 kilometers
raining,
of wet, you're on slicks.
You have to suck it up and you have to drive through that in the wet because, and then that really shows, who's experienced enough to know what part of the track is more slick than others, because not all the pavement's the same on the track throughout the, you get through like Hassenbach in the beginning of the lap, absolute ice in the wet. Like it is, you have to tiptoe through there in the wet. You have that.
And there's no runoff, there's no nothing.
Exactly.
You're sideways, you're in the wall.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then you have like the repaved part, which then comes from Flonsgaard, from Fleetplatz all the way down to, they've been repaving a lot of it now. They repaved Tiergarten as well now. There's a lot of places now that have more grip. But yeah, I could go on for hours talking about this place.
But that's an interesting point, is they don't just repave the entire track. So now you're dealing with different surfaces of different types, so you have grip, you have no grip, you have some grip, just depending on where you're at within that particular area. But at the end of the day, it's also just butt time in the seat. Whatever it is, whether it's a go-kart, whether it's a Civic, an old 80s BMW, or even, a brand new factory-built race car. It's just time is time and experience is everything. So that's a great piece of advice. So thank you for that. So for the BMW CCA fans watching this, and that is not a BMW in the background. What is that, a Ferrari or something like that? Where can we see you guys race? What's the schedule look like this year? And what's next? How can people support you guys and watch?
Yeah, so we're actually starting our season first weekend of April at Sonoma Raceway, April 5 to 7.
Okay.
Then I head to Long Beach for a standalone event. He won't be in the car with me, but I'll be driving a GT4. Then I think we go to Sebring, Coda, Barber, Road America, Indy.
You're forgetting VIR.
And VIR. I always forget one.
Very cool.
He always does.
And it's a Ferrari. It's
Keeps him
fine.
young.
Keeps him young. So we are surrounded by car enthusiasts. I guess we have to remember that too. So.
But we're also probably going to be doing some Nürburgring races together, which you can
cool.
watch on YouTube.
Very cool.
Really great coverage.
Nice. I have watched the 24 Hours of Nürburgring numerous times. It's amazing to watch it.
Actually, to correct myself, you can watch both series on YouTube or CBS Sports Network for GT World Challenge America. Follow us on socials, Samantha Tan Racing. And see you at the races.
Perfect. Awesome.